Okay, I want jQuery. How do I get it? And how do I use it in my web pages? Fortunately, the answer to these questions is pretty simple. You get jQuery from jQuery.com. There's a very obvious link on the page that says download, and it takes you to this page where you can download the JavaScript files. Now, there actually are two main jQuery JavaScript files in the current version, the development version and the deployment version. Basically, the difference is whether or not it's readable. So the development version is a JavaScript file that you can open up in your editor, you can look at it, and it looks readable. It's laid out with indentation, the function names are very obvious, it's very clear what's going on. And that's what you should use at the beginning when you're developing and testing. However, they also release what's called a minified version. It's just smashed together so it's smaller. The only advantage of the minified version is it loads more quickly on a real-life deployment. You want to start with the development version and switch over to the deployment version once you're ready to deploy your application. However, you've got a problem. The names of the files are different. For example, the latest version as of October 2015 is jQuery 2.1.4. And the development version is jQuery 2.1.4.js. But the minified, the compressed version, is jQuery 2.1.4.min.js. They're different names. And if you develop 15 different web pages and they're all using jQuery, it's a little bit of an annoyance to have to go through and change all of the script tags that load jQuery and change the name from 2.1.4 to 2.1.4.min.js. So there's a common strategy. You download both versions. In your actual web application, you rename jQuery 2.1.4.js to just jQuery.js, or some people just put the major version, jQuery 2. But even more common is just call it jQuery.js. And then later on, after you finish testing and you're ready to deploy it so that customers can use it, and you want the pages to load slightly faster by having a smaller JavaScript file, you take jQuery 2.1.4.min.js and you rename it to the same name. And then you take out the old version of jQuery.js and you drop in the new version of jQuery.js. The point here is that you only have one script folder, but you have lots of different HTML files. So that if you edit the HTML files, you have to edit lots of files. But if you just replace the file name, you only have to replace one. And by leaving off at least the minor jQuery version number, this strategy also lets you upgrade. If later on they say, oh, we found a bug in jQuery 2.1.4 that in this obscure situation something goes wrong. And so they released jQuery 2.1.5 to fix it. Or they run some benchmarking and they say, oh, jQuery 2.1.4 was inefficient for these certain operations. Let's release a faster version. Well, by using the generic name, you can replace jQuery.js that's really 2.1.4 with jQuery.js that's now 2.1.5, and none of your HTML files have to change. So, even though there are two versions, you should rename first the development version, then later when you're ready to ship the deployment version to a much more generic name, and that's the name that you should use in your actual scripts folder that you should refer to from your actual HTML file. Okay, so a typical approach, a typical HTML page that uses jQuery looks something like this. You probably start by loading some style sheet, as we saw in an earlier section. After you load the style sheet, you load jQuery, usually from a subfolder. But notice that that's not the actual file name that you downloaded from jQuery.com. The actual file name is jQuery-2.x.y, maybe with a -min on the end, but you've renamed it. And then when you update the version or you switch to the minified version, you just replace that file in your scripts folder. And then, of course, you're going to load some of your own code, as we've been doing all along. It's important to note, however, that you should load your own code, if it refers to jQuery, after you load the jQuery file.